Michael.
Here.
Dwayne.
Yes.
Janet. Here. Roman.
Here.
Steve.
Here.
Alec.
Present.
Mayor Kimpton.
Yes. And so I wanted to turn things over to Jerry. Hang on. I wanted to turn things over to Jerry. We have a new face here in the council chambers, and so I thought he could help us with that.
Well, I appreciate that. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Terrific. Thanks. Turn things over to Jerry is much broader than I'm really going to do here. I'm here really just I want to introduce Nick Klein, who's sitting to Carlos's right. And he's an attorney in our office. And as you know, our arrangement with you is that we provide a team to do the town attorney work for the town. And Nick is a really important part of that team. He has met a number of you already. I'm glad he was able to come down. That was our intention, really, to have him come down in person and see all of you as I did. And I'll be back in August to do that again, because that's an important part of the relationship as far as we're concerned. He's worked with almost all of the staff in various ways on various things, and will continue to do that. He does, as you probably know, the prosecution, municipal court. So after tonight, he'll tomorrow morning do that before he goes back home. As I say, he's worked on a number of matters for the town and will continue to. There are a couple of them tonight that he's worked hard on, and that you'll probably see me defer to him on a couple things if there are questions. But the main reason that we wanted to have him come was the reason I came the other time, was to meet you in person, understand a little bit better about the town. There's no substitute, as we all know, for a site visit, and to meet the people, and he's been able to do that, and I'm pleased that he was able to come down. So that's all I've got. As there are agenda items that I'll want his help on, I'll be calling on him. Thank you.
We got to see he's a little taller than you are.
Yeah, well, that's why I try to appear, virtually. You're taller on the screen than you really are in real life.
Jerry, your head's almost at the ceiling right now. Much taller.
That's great. The only thing I regret is I'm not getting the snacks, darn it. But, you can't have it all. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for your indulgence on that.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry, and welcome, Nick. It's a pleasure to have you. All right, next item is public comment. Citizens may make comments on items not scheduled on the agenda. Per Colorado open meetings law, no council discussion or action will take place until a later date, if necessary. You must sign in with the town clerk before speaking. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. So we'll start with folks here in person. Anyone here in person have public comments tonight? Please step up to the podium.
On behalf of one of my neighbors.
Oh, hold on. You want to read your spiel, Nick? Did you read the 3 minutes? No.
Just limited 3 minutes.
Yeah, of course.
And please introduce
Quicker
yourself.
than that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please,
My name's
and you
Tom
just
Rolochek.
introduce yourself to all of us, but for the record, please.
I'm Tom Rolochek. I live about Cinnamon, 21 Cinnamon. I believe it was on Saturday. There was a dog that was killed on our road by a new tenant that took occupancy, right? I think between Dwayne and I, somewhere in that region. And I know that there's a lot of concern from some of the homeowners in the area about speeding on the road and maintaining speed limits. And we've addressed it before. I know it's an issue in terms of the whole community, Crested in here. We do our best to try to model good behavior, but there's a lot of new people and there's also a lot of construction going on. I'm not sure what the solution is, but I thought it prudent to bring it to people's attention. There's a lot more kids in the neighborhood. There's a lot more dogs. I think it's going to come up for you from some citizens that are even more concerned than I am about it. Not that I'm not concerned, but I think they were there when it happened and it hit them pretty hard. So just kind of bring it to your attention. All I got.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, Roman had one, public comment is not for back and forth, and so I'm the one violating the rules here, but I'm gonna go ahead and take some liberties and do so. We have recently lowered the speed limit in all of Mount Crested to 15, from 20 to 15. And so that is being implemented, and by implementing, I mean, we need some time to actually change the signs out, and so that has not happened, but that's being worked on as we speak. And so we have lowered the speed limit. Again, I'm not saying that's a silver bullet by any means, but it is a small step to address, I think, the problem you're talking about.
And since we're violating, I
Since we're all violating.
will say that myself and the chief did have conversations yesterday and today with some folks on Cinnamon Mountain Road. They were heard and fruitful and were exploring options, but we did tell them what the mayor just relayed as well.
I think they had some concerns that there wasn't a lot of speed limit signs. They went out and did some evaluation of that. You know, it's not a perfect world, so part of it is people with dogs close to the road as well. We have seen an increase in traffic on that road. Just because, mostly because of construction, I think. It's the time of year.
Right. And Jerry, that's why I was late to our today.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Next item, I'm sorry, is there anyone online for public comment? Anyone virtually for public comment? Okay, hearing none. Next item is the consent agenda. I'm not gonna, in effort for the consent, I'm not gonna read the explanation of the consent agenda. Okay,
I'm gonna move to approve the consent agenda that includes the June 20th, 2023 minutes and the Evolve VCA staff memo and agreement.
so a motion from Janet and a second from Michael to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion?
Alec,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes?
Steve.
Yep.
Dwayne, Michael,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes,
Mayor Kimpton.
Yes. Next item is finding and decision application for 740 Gothic Road Community Development Coordinator Leah. Scratch that. Community Development Director. You'll start you off.
Good evening, councilors. Neil Stark, Vermont Community Development. Leah's out sick today. This is pertaining to 740 Gothic rezoning. That I turned you over to County Attorney Jerry.
Okay, it was a little hard for me to hear from the podium, but Neil just handed off to me, didn't he?
Yes.
Aha, very good. I was expecting that, so that's good. Members of the council, this is the set of findings that you directed me to prepare at the end of the hearing that you had on 740 Gothic last meeting. And I will tell you that a couple of things. First, that I don't expect to be doing written findings very often. And when I do, they'll be pretty much just straightforward, kind of just the facts, ma'am, kind of thing that you see here. I felt it was important in this particular case. Going forward, I've talked with the staff, and we'll try as much as we can to have the motions that are associated with land use cases be complete enough in their references to the code sections and to the evidence that the motions that are taken and the staff report in that particular meeting occupy the territory and satisfy any need for any kind of written findings. But tonight you do have this, and it's not the whole case. It's a summary, obviously, of the testimony that was offered and then the decision that you made. I'll confirm to you that this isn't a new decision that you make. You already made the decision to deny the application. What this is that you're approving the written findings that memorialize that. The best analogy I can think of is, you're in court and there's a motion or something, the judge rules from the bench and says, okay, you win or you lose, and directs, the attorneys to write up an order for his or her signature. And that's really what this is here tonight. But we will occasionally want to use this system, and it's kind of helpful, I suppose, that you see how a set of findings would lay out in summarizing what happened during the hearing. That's all I've got. There's a motion in the packet, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Jerry?
so we don't need to take any action tonight.
Just need to approve the findings that are before you.
Move to approve findings, decision, the application, Stephanie Brandon Giles for rezoning 740 Bassett Road.
Second. So a motion from Steve and a second from Dwayne. No,
Third time's a charm.
I don't.
you did it. I'm sorry, my,
It was stereo.
okay.
I'm sitting closer, so.
No, sorry. So we have a motion from Steve and a second from Alec to approve, the finding and decision for 740 Gothic Road. Any further discussion? Roland?
If the recording captured this, fine, but I don't recall us making the claim that the population of Mount Crested has not changed significantly since that home was built. I'm not saying it wasn't made, I just don't recall that being one of the findings. Well, I'm reading KA that states that.
Actually, it's probably the other way around, right? That population has seen significant changes.
Significant is the key. Jerry, go ahead.
Sure, help me out with which paragraph of the findings, because we can easily just delete that.
KA
Paragraph A
is an apple.
as an apple.
Yeah, it's either not or has not. I don't recall us pointing either way.
Now, there's something that was like part of the discussion.
Oh, I see. Oh, down there. Okay, all right. I'm fine with if the friendly amendment, if the maker of the motion consents, as does the second, to delete letter A. That's fine with me.
If the intent is to memorialize what was said, could we approve this with concerning whether or not that was?
And I think Alec is right. I think it was discussed from the other side. Like, I think they proposed that things had changed, but we didn't agree with that or acknowledge. Yeah, I think it was just something that was said, so. Depending on.
Yeah.
Oh, but Jerry, I think we'd all take your counsel if removing it would just be easier and more clear, then that's probably the thing to do, yes?
Yes, I think it absolutely would. As I read it now, I'm saying, oh, gosh, I'm sure it has changed since the 70s. And so if the maker of the motion agrees to that the motion is to approve the findings with the deletion of letter A under K, and the second agrees, then we're good.
Cool. Which one were we calling? I thought it was, so I would like to amend my motion to I'll amend my motion to approve the findings and decision for the application of Stephanie Brandon Giles for rezoning 740 Gothic Road with the deletion of section K A.
Got it. Second?
Yes, second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Steve and a second from Alec as amended to approve the findings of fact for 740 Gothic Road. Zoning question. Any further discussion?
Roman,
Yes.
Janet.
Yes.
Dwayne.
Yes.
Steve.
Yep.
Alec,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Mayor Kimpton.
Yes. And so with that, I think this is the last bit of business for 740 Gothic, at least this portion of it. And so I formally close the public hearing now.
That's fine.
All right, and then 8.2, we're skipping, Carlos.
Yeah, 8.2, the community housing plan for Pine Rock Ridge has been pulled from the agenda. We discovered some additional, a recent covenant in the 3 seasons that 3 seasons recently amended that prohibits deed restricting units. So I don't know exactly when, but after when we bought ours. Well, ours was already encumbered by deed restriction, so we were covered there. So I think it was after ours, but I can't speak to exactly. So this is not as of now. So that we pulled it. Staff made the decision to yank it from the agenda.
You're 740.
You took the over there.
Looks like you're cooking dinner.
All right.
You had inside information.
Yeah, I think so. Let's count on that, 45 minutes.
Okay, so. All right. Next item is resolution number 12, series 2023, a resolution of the town council of the town of Mount Pleasant, Colorado, revising the electronic bicycle rebate program for approved town residents. Tiffany.
So as we are going through and administering these e-bike rebates, unfortunately, we have to revisit a few things and make clear the clarifications. I know what you guys want, but just to make things more clear. One thing that we did add, I spend a lot of time trying to find the e-bike online, looking at the specifications. Is it a class 1, 2, or 3? What are the watts now of the battery? I've been researching. I know more about e-bikes than anybody. Not quite, but, so one of the things we want to, the requirements of the program is they have to submit the specifications so that I can quickly look at that. We also had one person recently, initially I declined him or denied him because it looked like the bike was not an e-bike. It went too fast, the watts were too big. He bought an older version, and after round and round and Carlos inspected the bike, we ended up giving it to him, but if he had submitted the specs for the bike, it would have saved staff a couple hours worth of work. So that's the reasoning behind that. And then we also just made it more clear when we say class 1, 2, or 3 e-bike that we are referring to the Colorado state statutes, just to kind of take some of that ambiguity away. And then we also added town staff discretionary authority, just as we're going through these, give us permission to use our best discretion. We're just kind of clarifying all that for you guys.
Good with that. Well, were we gonna add the language saying that people?
We did that on another go.
Okay.
That was already approved at the last meeting, so we made that change, so that should be reflected here, but
I
that.
was read through it a couple times, and perhaps I read it too fast, so thank you. Sorry.
For that last yellow bit.
Move to approve resolution 12, series 2023.
Second. We have a motion from Steve and a second from Alec to approve resolution number 12, series 2023. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Tiffany?
Michael.
Yeah.
Dwayne.
Yes.
Janet.
Yes.
Roman.
Yes.
Steve.
Yep.
Alec.
Yes.
Mayor Kimpton.
Yes.
And Roman.
Yes.
Under qualifying e-bikes, it says new e-bike. And then it also says e-bike must be new to qualify.
Yeah, I think I very quickly tracked the highlighted part. Actually. Thank you.
Might I add that and I don't have it in front of me, but I remember reading it, something along the lines of something about town staff. It was towards the very bottom.
I think that's internal. I mean, isn't it? Or is
No,
that
but there was a word missing.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, let me do
Well, maybe that's something we could do.
that. Something about, I think they included this town staff being eligible for the rebate. We should just proofread it to make sure that,
I found what you're talking about tonight.
okay, cool.
Thanks,
I
man.
see it.
And Tiffany, I would have one disagreement with you. I don't think it's unfortunate that we're doing this. We knew we were gonna, this is a pilot program. We knew we had lessons to learn. We didn't know what they were, but we knew there would be some. And so I think it's great that we're figuring this out and we'll.
These are the little changes.
Yeah, no,
In my opinion, I got bigger ideas for the program later.
Okay.
This is a preferred method that 10 minutes rather than
40?
an hour and a half on class.
Fair enough.
And I just will add,
That's
that the big one was to further define what an e-bike is and to refer to the Colorado state definition. But it is not, as inevitably these little things will continue to come up. It's not our intent to every 2 weeks come with a revised resolution, but we're making notes of these items. When it comes time to revisit the program, we will present those to the council for consideration. We just thought this one wasn't big enough.
Yep.
That it warranted an amendment to the resolution.
All right. Next item is continued. Sorry to laugh at continued. Continued charter amendment discussion on that ballot question language. Town Attorney Gerald Dahl, and Nick Platt.
Thank you very much. Well, we're racing through the agenda. We're in great danger of, getting done before 6. If that's what happens, then that's great. But maybe we'll be saved from that. I don't want to jinx anything here. Council, you've seen this, of course, a couple of times, but it's important, and I'm glad that the council's had just a couple of different times now to think through this a little bit. And your last request at the last meeting was, sounds good in terms of the kind of 4 change options and the other 2 doors that are available, but can we see that in actual language? And so that is what we've done. Let me start with the memo first, though, just to tell us what the options are, and then we can see them reflected in code language and are in ballot question language. And then I think we can move toward direction from you to bring back the ordinance that will actually set that ballot question, the one you pick. But on the memo, you'll notice there's a bunch of bullets, but the first 4 are charter change bullets, really. And so it's pretty familiar by now. Allowed to keep the 2-term limitation, but say that if you skip a full term, you can run again. So that allows more service if you break it up by 4 years. Door number 2 is the same as door number 1, only break it up by 2 years. And you've seen this before, but I'm just kind of reminding us. Door number 3 is forget that, and let's just go with 3 consecutive 4-year terms, just 12 years. Door number 4 is expressly permit a candidate to be elected, go 3 consecutive terms, and if you skip 2 years, you can come back. So as you go through it, there's really more flexibility and really more service, if you will. The last 2 bullets are: do you want to go back to the voters as you did in 2021 to say let's eliminate the term limit restriction entirely, or just no change, leave it the way it is? So if you turn the page, digitally or otherwise, 2 pages, I guess, then you see on the kind of, it looks like it's page 4652 in the packet. You have the ballot questions at the bottom of page 45, but the ballot questions just really put in almost the same language. Those 4 doors that I described. Obviously, Nick and I did not write up doors number 5 and 6, which are ask the voters to eliminate the restriction. That'll be a whole different kind of question. And door 6 obviously doesn't require any change at all. But now you see the language in front of you. It's pretty straightforward. And it's probably time for the policy decision, which I'll tell you, you can direct us tonight to say, okay, pick door number 3, bring that ordinance back to us. That gives you still a little bit more time to make, a final decision about whether you like door number 3. And I would think, Carlos, that we'll probably, whatever ordinance we bring back, we'll bring back not next week because it's a short turnaround time, but instead August the 1st. And so that'd be first reading, second reading on the 15th. And that's still, pardon?
Jerry, if we wait till August 1st, it'll be first reading on August 1st, and the second reading won't be until September.
Okay, then we need to do first reading next meeting, the 18th, correct?
I'm sorry.
That's fine. And the council's got 2 weeks after that to August, they've got then to August 1st to, you could be amending it on second reading if you liked and change from door 2 to 3. Now, let's hope that doesn't happen, but I get it that with stuff like this, you want to take your time, but we've had a number of cycles now, and I think it's probably time for the council to just debate the merits of these options and tell us which one they like, and we'll write it up. Nick, did I miss anything in terms of the details here?
The only thing I'd add is the numbered ballot questions do correspond with the text amendments, so just to make it easier to read.
Door one is door one in both places and so on. You know how I like doors? I prefer it to be just 3 choices. It's driving me nuts that it's more than 3, but in this case, there are more than 3.
So it seems we have some people voting already.
Well, I have a question.
Oh, you were just.
No, I have a question. I have a question for our attorneys.
Okay.
So I'll throw a few, I'll like 2, but then I'll. So if I look at one of these options, Nick or Jerry, let's say number 3. The way it's worded is you're limited if you run 3 consecutive 4-year terms. But what if somebody runs, and let's say that we select that, and that goes into law. What happens if someone goes a 4-year term, sits out, and then decides to run again? Do they get 3?
Yes.
Yes.
Consecutive.
Yeah, it's the limit.
One consecutive, so can they get another 3?
You can run for 4,
So you
do
could,
2
so
years
then
off,
essentially you would have,
do 4, 2 years off, do
Yeah.
4, you could keep that cycle.
that's what I'm wondering. Is
I
that the way it's
think
worded?
the other way you can read that is it eliminates, no, I'm sorry. I take
So,
that back.
and was that our intention for that to happen?
For 3 it is.
Well, okay, so let's say number 2 then. Could you do 1 term, sit out for no particular reason, just because you're gonna be out of town on
Yes.
walkabout for 2 years,
Yes.
and then come back and do 2 more 4-year terms?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay, and that was the intention here. We'll go with this.
Yes.
Currently, if you look at the way your terms are, you could do 4, sit out a year, or 2 years, do 4, sit out a year, do 4.
Can we?
No.
We can do that.
Yes, if you do 4-year term, and then you sit out for 2 years, you can do another 4-year term. Then you can sit out for 2 years and then do another, because currently you have to have 2-year consecutive terms and then you're done. Yes,
that's the limitation. And
I had to do some math on some.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I'll say this, and I know you want to have the policy debate, and I'll shut up in a second, but Michael's question is really, critical because it's really basic. That's the pattern even statewide in the Constitution, of which of course you can set aside by your charter, which you've done, or you're doing here. And that's serve X number of consecutive terms so that, but the limitation on it's a limitation on consecutive terms, not a limitation on the total number of years you might spend in that chair when you add them all up. And I think that's the right rule. That's certainly the rule as it's understood at the state level. And it's, kind of give it up for a little while and let somebody else have a chance. But it's not a limitation on the total number of years, if you skip out every now and again, as Tiffany says, that you could serve.
that's why we do have some counselors in years gone by that have served multiple terms, because there's confusion between what Jerry just said, state statute, and our town code.
Well, so if that's the case, then isn't number 1 status quo?
No, it's currently.
You would
Actually-
be eligible for reelection after 2 consecutive 4-year terms. This makes you eligible for election again once you sat out.
So
Right, so isn't that different than what you just said though? So if you served you served 8 years in a row.
Currently,
done
with the charter,
completely.
you're done completely.
That's actually
Okay.
not historical precedent.
Well, that's because the charter and the state statute were confused by.
So a good example to address this, Dan Dickford started in April of 2000. He ran until he was in council until April of 2018, and he had a brief period off in 2009, correct?
So that did happen. He was the only one. That's because the clerk then was interpreting it, was reading just the state statute, not the town charter. So, and because we're home rule, charter supersedes state statute.
Copy, so that was housekeeping.
Yes.
So,
Housekeeping is some counselors. like to serve longer than-
so if I apply this, right? Yeah. Current status quo is Nicholas would be term limited, status quo right now.
Mhm.
Okay, but since I've only done 1 4-year term, if I sit out 4 years or whatever, I can come back and serve another 2 consecutive.
Yes.
But then you're done.
Roland's on schedule if he wants to run under current charter. Roland could run, I remember one time when we were redoing stuff, I was like, you got 10 years if you want.
Well, 'cause you got appointed,
Because he took a 2, yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
he didn't serve, he hasn't
I
served.
voluntarily went to a 2-year term after the last election.
You
This
want
is
you
technically
want
his
a
first
decade of
4-year
service.
term.
Okay,
Yeah, and some people have been appointed for portions of other terms, so yeah. Okay, Janet's ready to go, Janet.
I just want to comment that I have my hand up.
Oh, I thought you were trying to make a motion.
No.
Okay.
I just want to comment because I know it's not the majority, but I still want to get for option 2.
Okay, Janet. Anybody else have something they wanna say about it? Roman?
Thank you for putting the language about the trials and tribulations of, you know, that's helpful, but I'm wondering, can it be baked into the actual like ballot language? Because I fell asleep 3 times just reading this, the ordinance. So, can it be baked in where it's in order to encourage participation, can, it shall, that kind of thing, or is it that fall out of the
Absolutely. And I'm glad you asked that question because the best analogy that you may well be thinking of is the Tabor questions, right? Where you have in order to finance X, Y, Z and do these wonderful things, shall taxes be increased by, X percent. And so it's perfectly fine for the ballot question to recite probably some of the material that you see in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th, whereas the longest one, if that's what you're thinking of, we can certainly do that. Obviously, in the ordinance that actually shows the text changes, we can only show, the text changes to the charter, but the ballot question could articulate that purpose.
And so coming out of this conversation, under ballot question and title and terms of office, there will be 1 paragraph under each of those.
Yes, right now you have all 4 because we didn't know we're going to pick, but if you pick one of them, we can enhance the ballot question and title portion of it to add this descriptive language that you've seen in that whereas. And then under the terms of office, the actual charter language, obviously it'll just be whichever door you pick. And that'll be the actual language of the charter as amended.
I don't know if anybody else felt this way, but I tried to, especially the ballot question and title, tried to read them through the lens of somebody who's not really familiar with this, and they're very confusing.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the problem last time.
Yeah, so before, I mean, I see this as 2 parts of voting on a direction to, and then honing the language. So,
Yeah, I think tonight we gotta pick one of the options. I think other things details could be worked out after the fact. I think tonight as a council though, what the task we have is to pick one of these.
okay, so we're not needling down on language, we're just trying to focus on intent, because number 1 under ballot question and title, if I read that in the booth and I really didn't do any homework, I'd be like, I don't even know what that means,
I'd be like, what's a home rule chart? And then I would just check it out.
Yeah, okay, so I.
That's what you did last time.
Yeah, no, I was
Right.
I would just like to throw it out there just for the record that I don't care what choice we make, what I care about is having an election, with, actual people voting.
And that's what we're all trying to accomplish.
We could just throw an election and not change anything.
We talked about this.
Just saying, it would be within the realm of possibility. The only reason we haven't had election, the reason that we use is that, there hasn't been any more candidates, than vacancies. So the challenge from my perspective is, and the reasoning or the justification for not having an election is, well, because it costs money. And, because it costs money, if there's no candidate, there's only enough candidates to fill the vacancies, why hold the election? Well, I would argue that the reason to hold the election is just to have the articulation of each candidate's ideas presented to the public so that they have a choice. They can rank, candidates for, this guy, yes, this guy, yes, or you could accomplish the same thing by, allowing them to elect the mayor. And we can change.
That's a whole other charter.
I know, but
Is there
that,
one of these numbers
once
that
again,
you
there's,
guys-
these are just things that haven't come up in my perspective in the discussion so far, and that's why I'm bringing them up.
Okay.
I think there's, this is
I don't think we want
something, the citizenry could be served by having an election, regardless if there aren't, if there aren't more candidates.
Well, and Dwayne, we could make these
Let's
changes,
say,
we could make these changes and still only have the same number of candidates as there are
that's my whole point.
openings. And so I
That's
think what
my
you're,
whole point.
so I
So
think you're,
still have an election.
okay, but that's not the topic.
I know.
Okay,
So we have
so-
to talk that way.
Okay.
I see where you're coming.
Thank
And we have started to have that conversation to try to get more warm bodies to want to do this. That's a separate thing that we've been talking about. We have the agenda item, we talked about health insurance, computers, more pay, right? We're still gonna have that. My personal goal with this, and our goal should be to choose one of these options that bridges us to that time. Because in 2 years, we're losing our mayor and mayor pro tem. And I don't know about this here, so, trying to give us a leg up until more people want to do this.
Yeah, so
And
this is just one,
embrace that,
this
and
is just one piece that isn't mutually exclusive with what you're talking. I think we can do both things.
I think that we should have an understanding that, yes, we're gonna have an election regardless of the outcome. The
Okay.
outcome of.
If we have more people.
And I think that's,
No, even if we don't, we
well,
can't.
That's not a thing.
either way, that's a discussion for another time. The piece that we're talking about tonight are options 1 through 4, or actually 1 through 6. And certainly if anyone has an option that isn't included in 1 through 6, now's the time to voice it. We could have an option 7, there's no reason that we can't. But I think we've really drilled down to 4, haven't we?
I feel really good with the options that we have here. I feel like we had a lot of information to assess this. So I would like to say that I'd make my choice. I'd like to go with option number 2.
Okay, motion.
No, I'm just kind of straw pulling.
No, and I appreciate you letting people talk. I appreciate that. And so before we get to a motion, does anybody else have anything they want to say? I think a motion is pending. Let's go Roman first and then Dwayne.
I'm still with option 3, and I think Jerry's comments about how we can massage the ballot language was really helpful for me tonight. And wrong way. If somebody's reading the actual language, there is intent behind the option. In order for us to have this election, to get more people to want to do this, shall we do this? And if I read that in the booth, I would probably say, yeah, that seems to make sense. It's not just some power grab by somebody who lives on some.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that's the point. The reason I'm good too is really because I just feel like it's smoothest. And so if there is a way to massage the front side language, then I'm totally, I'm not attached to, I could go either way. So, but I would like to see what you touched on, that conciseness that gives people to understanding of why this is in front. So I'm flexible in that matter.
So I appreciate that, Steve. Are you comfortable enough? So you'd like to see it one more time? Is that what I'm hearing?
Say that again, sorry.
We don't have time to say it one more time.
Say what?
Well, you're saying if the things were massaged, then you could go either way?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying too, I don't know that we have the time to get that back again.
Fair.
And so how would you vote? How would that affect your vote tonight if you're not able to see it tonight? I guess is the question.
But we can still make material changes to that post,
The
right?
language, oh, yeah.
I have deep faith in Jerry and Nick's ability to come up with something that the voter can understand. So I would be okay with that, and with that in mind, that's where my flexibility comes from. So if there's a real passionate position that a bunch of you have, I'm comfortable. But I do feel, my logic was two, I feel like two has a better chance of passing. So that was where.
We're just saying you could vote for 3 as well.
So
I can also vote for 3. Number 2, to my way of thinking, yeah, it's smooth, it's, simple, and I acknowledge that. But to me, it's confusing because it doesn't specifically increase the number. I mean, like, the ballot or the charter language now is you can only serve 2 terms. It doesn't say 2 consecutive terms, it says 2 terms. And all this does is add, some confusion about, you could run, all it does is define consecutive terms. It doesn't add any additional term eligibility. It still limits one to 8 years. So, once again.
Are you talking about option 3?
Option 2.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And so that's why I would, I would prefer to go with number 3, because it is something that, specifically adds additional eligibility to, for an elected official.
Okay.
That's my logic on it. And if somehow in the ballot language, in the whereas, we can emphasize that the whole purpose of this is to get to have an election.
Yep, and I think that's what.
To have an
Move
election.
to approve number 3 for language of the ballot.
Second. Okay, we have a motion from, we're gonna have discussion. We have a motion from Roman and a second from Alec to approve option 3. Further discussion, and I don't know which.
I just want to clarify something with Tiffany. Isn't the current wording that to be elected to 2 4-year
Yeah.
terms?
Dwayne, I'm sorry, you're confusing it. So right now, you have to serve 2 4-year consecutive terms, and then you're done.
Period.
Language, then you're done. You just said you get to serve 4, you have to serve 8 years total. No, you have to serve 2 4-year consecutive terms, and then you're currently done. And option number 2 allows you to serve 2 4-year terms, consecutive terms, 2 4-year back-to-back terms, then sit out for 2 years. Then you can run another 2 4-year consecutive terms.
Michael? So, my reasoning for 2, is I'm trying to, or, motion, right? Motions for 3, I'm looking to see what's going to be in my opinion, the most likely to succeed at the ballot. And if I'm Mr. Public, looking at this, I'm seeing that somebody who's term limited in 2 years wants another term. And somebody said, it doesn't make it look pretty, you're trying to, take another term. And we know that that's not the case while we're doing this, and we're trying to do this for some continuity, but the 3 feels like a power grab for an extra term, in my opinion. And I think that could be spun that way as well for people who are, who would be opposed to this. So that's why I'm not a fan of 3, because, well, I mean, we've obviously had turnover in council before we survived. So granted, I know we're losing some folks in November, but I have faith that we can survive and make it through. And if that's the only reason why we're going with 3, just for the continuity, then I think that's probably a little short-sighted and that's not close to 3.
The way I would phrase it is a self-serving.
Correct.
But, I was very much in your court. I think for the majority of this discussion. What I was thinking about is, initially sort of my elevator pitch for that was that it was just more short and sweet, But it was also the case that the previous ballot initiative was actually pretty straightforward. It wasn't confusing, and maybe almost to detriment, right? Because you're like, whoa, this seems like it's trying to cut out. Kind of Dwayne's point also a little bit, adding that 3 sort of says like we really are trying to maybe pass something that will affect, not just sort of slightly change status quo. I go back and forth on it, it's true. But I think also a consideration is that it would increase everybody. I mean, it kind of, as we are trying to get more and more participation, hoping that rate picks up, without that rate picking up, getting a couple people trickling in, that 3-year term expansion sort of helps us out also. To some degree in the sort of near future, without even not considering the, president of council. Somebody stepping on in a 1.5 or 2 years will also have that extra term with that. That's kind of why.
Can I ask you and Janet a
No.
question about? We know our goal is.
Not relevant. But I don't think we should do that. I don't think it's appropriate.
Well, you can choose to answer or not, but the question that I ask is, would you come back after, 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's.
Okay, I'm just, because my thinking is, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I mean, I'm done. I'd be into other things, and so nothing would change. Just saying.
I don't disagree with anything you said. My concerns. I'm comforted with the massaging of the language that's available to us. Papers already got an article. This is obviously something that we're talking about and actually talking about. Perhaps there will be some opportunities for Q&A with our town manager. So I think as we're cognizant of the issues that we ran into last time.
I just created work for you.
His eyebrows went under his hair.
or our mayor. Being cognizant of the issues that we had last time, I think we have a better chance, so that's all.
One more last thing for my discussion here is, I think there's some traditions and precedents that the two, obviously our highest elected leader in the land, it's a 2-year term, most governorships are 2-year terms. Obviously, we have essential rights in Congress and the Senate that we have, but, and as Jerry mentioned, that there's a lot of 2 4-year terms as well, in the state of Colorado. So I think there's just some tradition and precedent there that 2 sounds right to people. It sounds right.
We go full presidential and say you have to be born and not see me. Nice.
Steve?
Tiffany, how do you currently interpret the town charter relative to what happens if a counselor is in their 2nd term and they resign midway through term? Is that still considered a full consecutive term?
Nope, they resigned. It also kind of.
And so they're able to then run in the next election cycle?
And I would, my question, like, my thought process off the top of my head, if the council resigns in the first 1 or 2 years, then they could definitely run again. If they were resigning towards the end of year 3 or 4,
I don't know if I agree with that, because it says previously elected to serve as council member for 2 consecutive 4-year terms.
That's what I thought, the key
Okay.
word is.
So
that
it's
they're
the elected
elected.
part, let Jerry weigh in, but it says elected to serve, not has served 2 consecutive. 4-year
Jerry covered this in our last one, that if you're appointed, or if you're appointed and then there's no election, you're effectively elected.
Okay.
Yeah, but that doesn't answer that.
Yeah. Yeah, if there's no election, then law, what actually happens is the council takes an action, and you've done it in the past, I'm sure, declaring the candidates elected. So, it's not an appointment to fill a midterm, vacancy, somebody resigns. Actually, at point of law, you declare them elected. So, but it seems to me, and I know you want to vote.
Just so we don't, this doesn't get out of hand.
Yeah,
Do we feel this is pertinent to the choices that are in front of us? This seems like a.
Kind of, I mean,
Okay.
if
It's
somebody
very
could just
pertinent.
be, the day before your intention, would have a piece of paper.
Sure, like I'm bummed I'm getting turned out, so the day before the election.
Day before the deadline.
I resign.
But I think
If I
what
could
Nick
just-
is saying is correct, is if you're elected,
Right, that counts,
that
doesn't matter.
counts. It
First
doesn't matter
day.
how long you
Also,
serve.
we
on
were
it.
trying to pass something to increase participation,
Yes.
so to try to derail the conversation to how to shore up loopholes that would effectively limit participation, just does not seem pertinent to this conversation.
Well, and I think it's a good question that if we haven't felt we've arrived at a definitive answer, that we should task our learned counsel with that to give us a definitive answer on that. But I agree that as far as the motion that's on the table and our vote, we're still gonna do that, and it shouldn't interfere with that. So Dwayne, do you have comment on the motion that's on the table?
Well, I'm looking for some clarity in the process, and essentially, Tiffany, we can withdraw our request to be on the ballot, correct? So,
Yeah.
so if we haven't gotten satisfaction amongst ourselves that we have a plan that's actually gonna work moving this forward, we can just.
Sure, we're not to our.
We don't have to be of the mind that, gotta do it now. You know, it can,
We could,
I'm just.
no, you're right.
Okay, it takes a lot of the urgency out of it for me on a certain level, but, I think this is something that requires serious deliberation.
And we will get that answer.
I'll just clarify a little bit on that.
I think if there's discussion on the motion that's on the table, if anybody has more of that, please speak now. Okay, and so now, so that everyone understands, the motion that's on the table is for option number 3. So that's the motion to approve option number 3.
increased term was 3 consecutive terms.
With a 2-year out,
So that,
with a 2-year sit out. Okay. Tiffany,
So option 3 is amend the charter to increase to 3 consecutive terms. Option 4.
No, it's different on the memo, but for the ballot question.
I'm looking at the wrong thing,
Yeah.
so, okay, let me just make sure I'm on the same page.
so again, so that we're all sure what the motion is for option number 3, which is to increase the allowable terms to 3 consecutive terms. And then that same person, if they sat out for 2 years, could serve again.
Got it. Thank you.
So with that,
Thank you, sir.
Tiffany,
Roman,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Alec,
Yes.
Janet,
no,
Michael,
No.
Dwayne,
No.
Mayor Kempton.
yes.
And let me give you a level of comfort. You will see a couple things. I really appreciate the direction in terms of articulating in the ballot question, and we can do more work in the whereas of the resolution, understanding that public doesn't see them as much as they see the ballot question. So we'll focus on the ballot question, articulating why you want this thing changed, and we can do that, certainly. And so number one, that's there's 3 levels of comfort here. That's one. Secondly, you'll see this language, of course, and have the chance, if you like, to tweak it, which is perfectly available to you at 2 occasions, first reading and second reading. So I'm not saying that at second reading, you should be debating whether it's option 3 or 4 or 1. By that time, you probably should have gotten there. But in terms of how it's articulated, you have those 2 additional chances. But we'll really take to heart everything we heard tonight to try to make the ballot question we put in front of you represent the subtleties that have been discussed here tonight.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Dick. I know you guys both worked on this a bunch. It's something that we've all worked on a bunch too, so much appreciated. All right, next item. And Steve, I think you're gonna.
Okay, slow down, Jimmy.
Change myself here. Next is town manager report and discussion items. Carlos.
So I'll provide you a few updates since the report was written. We did hire Andre Garcia as our new employee in the maintenance department. He started yesterday, so we're really excited, especially Bobby, have that position filled. He's very capable. He's former employee for both CBMAR. He worked maintenance, lift maintenance for CBMAR. He also worked in the public department for the town of CB. So we're excited to have him. Human resources outsourcing. We have signed up with Employers Council. I will be bringing 2 agreements to you hopefully next Tuesday, just to solidify 2 of the things that they'll 2 services that they'll be providing for us. You know, typically, I don't want to say typically, but hopefully these will be the types of things that I'll be able to execute as the town manager. But in the current rules of the code, I'm not able to do that, as council has to have council approval. And so to that, also on that meeting, the mayor, Jerry, and I are working on certain items where I do, as town manager, have the authority to sign. So 2 little pieces there. If you want the details on the services, I'll be happy to provide those to you. We did select JVA Engineering as our supplemental on-call engineer. So we're excited about that. They have a strong reputation across multiple municipalities. They have a presence with the town of CB, Crested Water and Sanitation District. So we're excited about that as well. Early returns on our town hall assessment is that there's some skin issues, but the bones are good. To use some creepy metaphors, I guess. But it was positive report. We expect the full report at the end of the month. Homestead, we closed on the project on June 30th. published the RFP this past Friday, so hopefully we'll get some good responses to that quickly. 4th of July, if you were there, hopefully you were and you saw it, but you might have noticed that the laser show didn't come off as planned. For the most part, it didn't really happen at all due to some technical issues. Rebecca had a conversation with the company yesterday, Monday, and we are expecting a full refund before. Earlier terms on that call were that they would do that, so hopefully they follow through with that, and there's nothing to do beyond that. Lodge Site 17, the Snowmass lot. I reached out to the owners and just kind of let them know that we were considering pursuing an appraisal on the lot, just as a courtesy to let them know. And they responded back, saying that was fine. We do have a good relationship with them, but they're really not interested in selling, even if it was a increased offer from where we had before. They did express an interest on partnering with the town on some kind of project under certain terms. So more to come on that, but I am just seeking guidance from the town council if you'd like to still pursue the appraisal at this point. They did give their blessing to do that, but I'm assuming that given that new piece of information, I don't know how valuable it would be to perform that appraisal, but I was giving some level of guidance to do that. I just wanted to give you that new information to see if the direction's changed.
Sounds like a waste of money to me.
I was just gonna say, maybe first step, asking what that partnership looks like,
Yes.
and later
Yes.
on.
Well, they threw out a couple of options, like, buyback over time. It was very general at that point.
An appraisal, to me, does not seem like a waste of money because it provides a basis on which to build value into whatever partnership it's worth X. Provide them with X worth of partnership value.
Well, but I think the guidance was to do the appraisal, to get a value, to make an offer. If they're not interested in selling, I agree, there still is value with the appraisal, but maybe we're jumping the gun a little bit now with that.
That's right.
Yeah, and I agree with everything that's been said, but at least a preliminary conversation with them to get sort of that next step, I think, before we spend money on.
I can arrange that. We have good relationships with them. They're very nice, they're very responsive, very nice, very understanding. So I can certainly make that happen. So what I'll take is, slow down on the appraisal. Next step would just be to have a conversation with them to see what that partnership might look like. Sales tax distribution to the county. We're anticipating having an executive session at the next meeting to discuss that further. Mayor Pro Tem Janet, Jerry, and myself had a meeting earlier today. And Bill Nicholson, Mayor Kempton in on it as well. So we'll have more information on that next Tuesday. That's the plan. Anyway, town manager evaluation, just keeping that alive, I guess.
I was gonna say a little bit more on that.
Yeah,
too,
so I'll let Janet address that as part of her report. Let's see. Pickleball, in case people are asking, that's on the books to get paved and painted and all that at the end of the month. We're on the schedule. So weather permitting, that should happen. I think it's 3 or 4 days it only takes to do that. We've had to coordinate around other events, mostly weddings in the garden, so it wasn't, we had to have the resurfacing happen. Other things such as weddings were not, so I think our staff and our select contractor did a good job of working around that. And at the end of this month, I know we get a lot of people coming by the office asking about that, so I assume you get questions about it as well, so I wanted to provide an update on that. Striping for Mount CB is scheduled for next week. It was supposed to happen a couple weeks ago, but then they had an equipment problem. Speed limit signs were, just an update, which I already updated earlier. We did have a conversation with certain citizen on Cinnamon Mountain Road that brought up the same situation that Mr. Rolchek brought up. We are considering taking a message board sign at Cinnamon Mountain Road, just saying, you know, speed limits in Mount CB 15 miles per hour unless otherwise posted. It is up already. It's already up. Bobby got on it. Just note that it's 15 miles per hour unless otherwise posted. I think that's what it says. That's what we discussed. And just know since the signs haven't changed, it's posted 20 miles per hour. But we figured anyway, it would still be beneficial to, you know, have someone consciously see that and be aware of that. And now that we have a full staff, we should be able to get those signs up sooner than later. Nordic Inn, we received word back from them today. They were accepting of our terms. So I've instructed Jerry to start drafting that agreement. So we'll work with the Nordic folks on that. Hopefully have something for your consideration here relatively soon. And lastly, just seeking guidance from the council. There's been a series of correspondence on updating energy codes, electrification, and all things on those lines. It is a state mandate to update the codes within, I think it's by 2026. So it is something that's on our radar, but admittedly at this point it is lower on the priority list. But now that we do have full staff, I think we can get to it sooner. I just want, and it is a rather large undertaking because you don't just adopt the energy code, you adopt the whole plate repertoire suite of international codes. But if the council is wants to bump that up the priority list, we can certainly do that and then get direction to make that happen. So that's the last thing. Any strong opinions on that one way or the other, just let me know. I don't need to know now.
Yeah, let's not do it now.
Yeah.
And I guess a couple of thoughts. I don't know how we can set for work sessions and things like that in the future, but this seems like appropriate for a work session. There's a lot of strong opinions in the room. I wanted to keep tonight with Frank focused so that we could get information from him and not debate about climate change with all due respect to everyone. So I think that policy debate would be well suited for a work session. So I'd rather not give you direction on that now, if everyone's okay with that. Maybe wait till after a work session. Do we have capacity for a work session? I'm saying all this before I'm asking the big
You guys
question.
tell me when you want it, we'll make it happen. We know there's,
Couple scheduled coming up.
Yeah, can we just put it on the work session list? I don't think it's a long list, so that means we'll get to it in relatively short order.
yes,
Okay.
if we get to it sooner rather than later,
Yes.
we can make it happen.
Regarding the priority level of the code, going into that work session would be helpful for me to understand what.
Good point. Thank you.
I had a question about the admission to Colorado 500. I'm assuming we'll see some sort of suggested language change to the admissions tax language prior to opening that door up for next round.
Is that where we landed to do some, is that what I say even?
Yes,
That did make sense.
The situation.
Yeah, I mean, the goal would be, of course, to do that before winter.
Anything else, Carlos?
I hope not.
Questions for Carlos? You mentioned that some problems with the skin, but the bones are good. Are we talking snake skins and mouse skins or?
Well, in some ways, the siding is deteriorating and some of the siding is rotten. And so because of that, that leads to easy access for pests. Yes, unwanted guests.
Well, that's really good news though.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. I have to say, I was cringing a little bit waiting for that report. So very glad to hear that.
Yeah, we'll of course share that with you.
Okay, so that's all for Carlos. Janet, you have a report as well?
Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry. You don't have anything, Tiffany?
Question. I was gonna bring this up at the e-bike agenda item, but I thought it would be more appropriate. So do you have updated data on who bought bikes and from where and the value and all that?
I've got a great big spreadsheet. I saw your email and I was going to put that in my clerk's report next week.
Okay.
That's all right.
Yeah, thanks. There wasn't a report. So I thought I'd answer this.
And that's a little reminder, we have a meeting next week.
You have a meeting next week.
Oh.
No, I'm just, it's, like, my thought process is that it's 2 more weeks, but it's not this
I was
month.
so
Yeah.
excited about being here that I should have last night.
Janet?
Yeah, the RTA report, any questions? And then, those that way, I did not bring one for you that, no, I got one. No, there's
She
one for each
printed
of
this
you.
out.
There's one for each of you. You can- Okay, well, you might want it if you want to make it a change, that's why I'm handing it out.
Well, but we'll have changes, we'll have the changes for next time, right?
Okay, so what the game plan is I'm handing this out, if y'all want any changes made to this, I have to have them by August 1st, the meeting on August 1st. And then we'll, from August 1st to August 20th, you'll have time to fill it out. I'll quickly get it turned around if there's any changes, and then I'll want the responses by August 20th, so it'll give me time to put it together in time for the meeting with Carlos in September. So look over that, see if you want any changes, let me know.
Thanks a bunch, Janet. Really appreciate it.
Just out of curiosity, I obviously haven't had a chance to go through it, but I'm assuming this is an adaptation of what we had
It's
last
the
time
same
around.
one this last time.
And
And I thought about changing, I got one from Carlos, it was pretty interesting from the town of Parker, but I really decided that I wanted to have some consistency between the last one we did and this one we did. And so that I think us looking at it in terms of being consistent in our types of answers will be helpful to us.
And we did put a bit of time into this one last time around. This isn't like something pulled off the shelf. We did a bunch on this, if I recall correctly. We did a bunch on this one last time around.
And it might be advantageous for us to look at job description and expectations that we had created for the position. See if there's anything that should be that's sort of modified, just so we're grading the town manager and the things that.
Can we shout out to counselors, those bits?
Yeah, and I'm assuming that's the job description that was part of the advertisement back in.
Yeah. All right, any other counselors have reports?
I'm just gonna add one little data point on to Janet's, the RTA, one of the things that really stood out in some recent survey stuff that's been going on, was that, this inbound flights from the south dropped 6%, or it's a 5% increase in south from, or in flights from the northeast. So I think looking at a lot of these numbers, I always, I thought it's detrimental to always rely on one single revenue source similar to energy sources. So, with that, it seems like something to watch relative to where TAP continues their focus, and if there's a worthy conversation to maybe pull 10% of TAP's market and start to do some test marketing in some of these markets that either are showing a little bit more interest than usual, or they're just a little bit not in Texas. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
That's about it though.
Good. Anybody else?
I like to leave something for him to add.
Appreciate it.
The TDA met yesterday and Carlos and staff has done, they did a great job of moving us forward in the process. Finding a lot of consumable information. It's far less than this, so.
Did y'all approve some more funding for the wayfinding?
Bottom line, in a word.
Huh?
Bottom line.
Okay.
Summarize a long meeting.
All right, I just wanted to give a quick report. Dwayne, Carlos, and myself attended CML. I thought it was a fantastic conference. We had Jerry and Nick there as well, so it was really great to see them there and be able to chat with them. There was I'd say an overwhelming amount of information, and a lot of good stuff, but I thought the thing that I would focus on and tell you all about tonight was that we had Governor Polis come and speak to us for a lunch, and he seemed,
We talk about, what is it, House Bill 213?
he seemed upset about the way House Bill 213 went. He mentioned Montana, which I guess in Montana duplexes are by right in Montana, and so he was essentially saying we should be more like Montana and so on and so forth. But the reason I bring it up, I think the thing that I took home from that, other than being a little bit shocked by his presentation, it seemed like he was very upset almost with the people in the room for the way that House Bill 213 went. And I think because CML was an integral part in defeating it. So it was really odd to see that and get that vibe from him. But the big positive takeaway from that is that I've never seen the room more galvanized to fight this, because it's coming back 100%. It's coming back. And we're gonna have to do it all over again, but I think it has even less chance this next time, because if you could have seen the people in the room and then all the conversations that took place subsequent to that, it was a real buzz from folks. Like, there was all these side conversations about the lunch with Governor Polis. And so amazing energy in the room, and I'd say prepare yourselves for this fight again, but I have confidence that it's going to go the same way, because if you looked at the resolve of the people in that room, they're as adamant as ever that we have to maintain home rule. It's one of the great things we have in Colorado, and one of the great things about our town is we have this autonomy, and we're able to decide important issues for ourselves in a way that fits us best, instead of the one size fits all that we're getting from the state. And so again, wonderful positive energy from all that.
I would add to that, my impression of his speech at that lunch was that he was doubling down.
Well, so is everybody else.
Yeah, so.
And again, I think, and I just want to say, I know you all understand it, but to me, really, the issue is home rule. I'm not actually for what House Bill, or a lot of what House Bill 213 has in it, but even if I thought that was a great idea, if it takes away home rule from us, then it's a non-starter. And so I just want you all to keep that. We'll look out for it. It's coming back. We could run in Montana. That's an option. I would have thought of that. I would have tried to push past the security and tell them that.
Somebody comes in, they're like, "You're only good here is to change this town."
Thanks to the three of you for going and representing us.
Yeah, it's really good.
Adjourn.
So moved. So adjourned.
You had to get that 7:30.
No, 7:40.
That was the over under, correct? Yes.
That's long enough for like.